welcome to DevReady Podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're taking a bit of a marketing spin and talking to Greg Smith. Greg is the CEO and founder of Send Handwritten. Send Handwritten, we've been utilising some of their services over the past 6 months, and would be great to sort of share their background experience around marketing. Greg's got a wealth of experience in the space. So, Greg, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, lads. Welcome to February already.
Oh, I know. It's 1 month down, 11 to go. It flies along pretty quickly year by year, and my son's just gone into prep, so that's changed the dynamic around the household. So it's a little quieter this year than it was last, or at least the last 2 days.
You should be able to record a bit easier, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. I've only got one to concern myself with.
So
they're different kids.
My older bull to younger bull advice is remember that when they're little, their problems are little, but when they get big, their problems get big. Mine are young adults now, and
yeah, that makes sense.
It's always something to learn about being a parent. You don't know what you're doing, just thrown into the deep end of it. So today, I wanted to sort of catch up, get to know a little bit about your background, your experience, and also a little bit about Send Handwritten, and deep dive into that a little bit. Greg, tell us a bit about your background experience and how you sort of got into marketing and that sort of sales spin in your career.
So it turns out that I'm not actually a marketing professional by background. What I am by background is an experiential educator. And it doesn't seem on the surface to make sense that my background of 25 years working with young adults and corporates outdoors would transfer itself into this world. But the bridge between what I did for 25 years building a multi-million dollar business in the Tweed Valley in northern New South Wales, the bridge is experience. So when I experience something, I understand, which is one of the wisdom legacies, if you like, or wisdom sayings is, when I do, I understand. And so what emerged out of that business when I sold that business to a large international not-for-profit was I watched a business that I'd given birth to deteriorate over 5 or 6 years and then eventually be destroyed. So it was a heart-wrenching experience. And it turns out that what that organization got right was everything. They were awesome. They are an international not-for-profit with a spectacular reputation in the experiential education field. The one thing that they got wrong was the customer experience piece. So I'd nurtured relationships for 20 odd years. They came in and not straight away, but over a period of few years, destroyed those relationships because they changed them and didn't care as much as I had for that clientele. The clientele then said, see you later, over a period of time, and eventually coronavirus and bushfires finally killed it. What I got in that same process was that you and I, and I'm projecting here, you and I are bored batless. There's a naughty word in there, but we're bored batless as we move through the Australian and Western marketplace. And when I say we're bored, we're really quite okay to be processed efficiently and transacted on time, but it's all bland. Imagine a shopping centre on this planet anywhere in the Western world. You go to any country, they all look the same.
There are no differences there. Might have a different roof.
No, not at all.
And here's the defining factor. Let's use the airline industry as the example, and then I'll move on, because this is the bridge between where I've come from and where we are now. If you fly in Australia from one capital city to the other and you fly Jetstar, it says on your ticket, passenger. And thank God Jetstar fly us safely from A to B, but we are quite clearly processed and transacted. I'm close to the Gold Coast airport. In fact, I can see it from here. When I go to the Gold Coast airport and I get in a Jetstar A320, I have a certain experience as a customer, as a passenger. If I walk to the other end of the tarmac at the Gold Coast airport and I get in another A320, but it has a Singapore Airlines insignia on the tail, I sit in the seat and I look at my ticket and it says guest. And I get a hot towel as I take my seat. And I get quite a nice meal between here and wherever I'm going, generally Singapore. The message is that they're both A320s, same machinery, but completely different experience. What human beings crave is a 5 or even a 6-star experience. And that is all about humanity. It's all about treating the human being as best as what we can possibly muster the emotional and the emotional labor to deliver. It's about caring.
Mm.
So when all else is the
it's
same,
a big lesson you've learned of the journey, hasn't it? Yes.
when all else is the same, the only defining factor that we have left at our disposal as entrepreneurs is to up our customer experience, which means upping our humanity. So being empathetic, being appreciative, creating wow experiences that Velcro your clientele to whatever it is that you do.
Mm-hmm. It's talked about a lot, but we all perceive it and we all see it depending on which brands we're dealing with, and some do it better than others. But yeah, I think the Jetstar analogy and the Singapore Airlines one makes a lot of sense for everyone to understand. And the guest and passenger are very different meanings behind the two, aren't they? Yeah, so it gives us a bit of context of where you're coming from and you're thinking. So you've learnt this piece around experience is important, and you've seen your business of 25 years be pretty much turned to disappear once it was sold to somebody else after the fact of the experience dropped off. So how did Send Handwritten come about? Because obviously that is all very driven around improving that experience and having a personable approach to the customer or potential customers even. What was the light bulb that sort of brought that to mind?
The light bulb was when I left that organization. So after I sold, I then had a contract with them for, it ended up being 5 years. And when I left and began a little consultancy called the Masters of Client Retention to answer one question for my clients. And there was only a small number at the start, obviously. And the one question we wanted to answer was, how do you Velcro your existing clients to whatever it is that you do? So I collected together a bunch of tools and a few clients and some processes, and we got a period of time into that, and there was a set of questions that just kept coming at me. And the questions, when I condensed them, were, Greg, what is the most cost-effective, easy to understand, simple to implement tool that I can implement yesterday and get a return on investment on tomorrow? And stop talking about client retention, because I'm really good at client retention. So we know that 80% of businesses business leaders are of the opinion that their clients love them. Turns out that only 8% of those same clients agree.
That's a vast difference.
Despite that gap, if I ask any business on the planet to show me their client retention budget, they will look at me cross-eyed. If I then say, can you show me your marketing or your lead generation or your prospecting budget, you'll generally get an answer. It's X% of turnover.
Yep.
So the question became, Greg, can you help us with our lead generation? And can you please make that experience for our prospects as delightful and as humane and as personalized and easy to grab hold of and lasting as possible?
Mm-hmm.
So when we looked at the marketplace and the tools that we already had in place, what percolated, to the surface over a period of time was handwritten, beautifully designed, wax sealed and delivered by mail pieces into now a mail system that is driven by packaging, not personalized messaging. The idea being to stand out in the sea of sameness. So when everybody's going digital, lean the other way and go analog.
It's different then. It's not, I'm getting 1,000 emails and you're one in 1,000, let alone, and that'll be one in a year. You might get something personal sent to you, if that's the reality.
Yeah, unless you're online shopping.
Yes.
So in the very first 6 months that we clarified that the gap in the market was that piece. We took on, and I'm looking at the samples on my desk here, but we took on a couple of clients. One was an accounting firm, and the order from the accounting firm was 100 cards a month for 12 months. So we designed the card. We got very clear on the strategy. We got the design right. We printed the cards. We printed his envelopes. We wax sealed them, and we sent the first 100. And the second month, we sent the second 100. Our appointment setters got on the phone to nurture those leads. That accountant, his name's Brendan, that accountant rang me at the end of 2 months. And he said, he didn't have much of a sense of humour, this fellow, but he said, mate, we've got a problem. And I said, oh, of course I went white hot. I said, what is the problem? And he said, do you know what you've done to my business? And of course my eyes are getting wider and wider and wider. And I said, no, Brendan, tell me. And he said, you've just blown it up. I'm $1.4 million ahead after 2 months' work. Now that's lifetime value of new work that had come in the door. So, and the multiple was 200, round figures, 210 grand of new work, all business clients for an accounting firm. He knew that they would stay for 10 years, but the average is 7. So we went 7 times 200 is 1.4. I said, do you want to delay month 3? He used a bunch of swear words and he said, send me a contract for 3 years. You are now my marketing department.
Mm-hmm. So
a great outcome.
Yeah, it's a good outcome for him,
now
definitely.
We've not had another 2 months of 1.4 mil, but consistently we have a 15% response rate month on month on month. In fact, the card, I don't know if your listeners can see it, if this is only audio, the yak on the shelf behind me is the count.
Oh, yes. I can see it behind you, right on top of your head. Just noticed it now when you pointed it out.
They call me the yak head. And the opening copy in that is a dad joke. It's the most valuable dad joke we've ever invented. Hi, Andrew. I hope you don't mind my old school approach. I'd love to have a yak with you. And that's the image.
Nice. All right. So very simple, very tongue-in-cheek, bit of fun in it.
Right.
Lightheartedness, nothing too serious. And
but it turns out
paid dividends. Yeah.
It turns out the exciting piece of this is that the neuroscientists now know that a sense of humour, when used appropriately, so it's not crass and it's not sweary and it's not all that nasty stuff, when it's used appropriately and it's a play on words like that, we are 31% smarter as human beings when we smile.
That's interesting data.
Now, that's not my data. That's data from a guy called Chris Voss, who for a big portion of his career trained FBI hostage.
He's the FBI, yeah, I know that name. Yeah, I've heard of him before.
Yeah. Now, of course, I chose to hear that statistic, and I drew that out of his TED Talk, and I have used that over and over. But my experience is that that's actually true. A stock photo from all of those online sources, yeah, they do the job. But if you can create something that draws people in and it's got a quip to it or a dad joke to it, those campaigns that we run usually are more impactful in terms of return on investment.
So in terms of everyone in the tech space is thinking, how do I manage my Facebook funnels? How do I get more leads on LinkedIn? How do I go digital? Should I email market, Google ads, etc.? This is obviously out of the box. It's different thinking, and it's the reason why we put it in the podcast, because sometimes we need to think differently. This may not be for everybody, but in context, we all appreciate something personable, but at least it's something that looks like it's been put a bit of effort into it, rather than just
you open
general
every letter
email. Yes.
So you open every letter that's addressed to you. I don't open every email that's addressed to me.
That's very true. Yeah.
So
that's one differentiation.
So you guys are in the tech space. If you were working with a client, and I know you're not building marketing campaigns for people, but what would you expect as a response rate on an email campaign? Sorry, let me change that. What would you expect as an open rate? How many of those emails per 100 would you expect to be a really good result?
I think in the marketing tools we've used, it says about 14 to 17% is an open rate. And then click-through rate is like 2% or 3%.
So when we can share with our clients that we get an over 90% open rate for the reason that you just shared, Anthony, and we get, because I want to be conservative. I want to undersell and over deliver wherever possible. But if we get the data avatar correct and the creative right, and we get this moving in the right direction for a client, anything less than a 10% response rate, I'm really bummed about. There's something wrong in one of the pieces that we're doing for the client. Now, a response rate is somebody that says, oh my God, I've got to talk to, the person whose photo's on the back of the card. Or when our appointment setters nurture that lead, they respond positively and either book an appointment or ask genuinely for more information about whatever's, on the table.
Yep. Yeah, so someone who actually wants to engage with you.
Yeah. So an over 90% response rate, if 2 or 3 or 4% click-through rate or response rate is good in an email campaign, and we're getting 10, 15, sometimes 20%. I'm running a campaign at the moment. We're getting a 25% appointment rate. That's an investment. There's an investment. It's not just a card in the mail. It's a sophisticated ecosystem that we're working on behalf of our client.
Mm-hmm. How have you found, obviously through COVID, a lot of people working at home, what's the impact to getting cards in the hand of the right person? Have you found that approach or that slight challenge, given most people are working at home at the moment?
Great question. And we had to address that back in March and April 2020, because you can imagine that what we're up to, that was a big drama. So we solved that in 2 ways. One was we created a new service, and we called that service our pre-call service. So our appointment setters on the phone, and the script vaguely goes something like, hi, Andrew, it's Gus here. I'm wondering if you could help me, please. Andrew's probably going to say, who the hell are you? It's Gus here from Send Handwritten. I'm a colleague of Greg Smith. We'd love to send you something personalized as a once-off. This is not spam, to your mailbox at work, preferably, if you're still going there. But if you're not at work, do you have a safe, and that's the operable word, do you have a safe home or closer to you PO box that we could send something really pretty surprising to you? Are you open for that? Now, 90% of people say, oh yeah, sure, send it to my wife's local PO box or our family PO box or whatever. 10% of people will say, rack off, hairy legs, like I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't care what you're up to or how you are. Yes. What that means is that our client doesn't, send 10% of that batch to somebody that is right at the front door, completely disinterested. The second thing that we did, we iterated and got pretty clever, I think, and we iterated into what we call audio digicards. So handwritten and hand-drawn work that shows up on your phone or in a LinkedIn feed or embedded in an email. So they talk to you, they write, and it is actual genuine handwriting that, of course, we digitize and we send over and over again. I've even got Morgan Freeman on the team narrating some of our work.
Interesting. Love it. So there's a bit in that. So you've obviously learnt from, everything's changed come COVID for a lot of people, and just setting up a few different services to assist with that. So holistically, when people think about, you mentioned one thing at the start of this conversation that not many people have a customer retention budget, and that everyone's got a marketing budget, or they're throwing money at marketing, depending if it's budgeted or not. They're putting money into marketing or generating leads in some way or another. What's your recommendation on that? Because I see there's some value in the whole retention piece. Is there certain numbers that you found or percentages that work or allocations that work from a retention? And what are some of the retention strategies? Because I think we can all look for leads, but our customers that we already have are a lot easier to convert to new sales, upsell if they know us, trust us, and are happy with our service. It's sometimes harder to convince it is a lot harder to convince a new customer than it is to convince somebody you're already working with. So what's some things you would be doing in your own business, for example, that you'd be putting to the customer retention side of things?
It's a great question. Are you okay if we just play with this for a little bit? We'll do a little mini workshop with Anthony and Andrew. If I said to you as entrepreneurs, if you consider an average size client and the annual budget that they're spending with you, and I said, well, what? And if I asked, would you be prepared to reinvest 50% of that budget back in them to bring them back for another year?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine your answer would be
probably not. Not viable, yes.
Yes. Would you be prepared to invest 1% of that annual budget back into that client to bring them back again?
Yeah, that's an easy no-brainer. Yep.
Okay, so that's an easy no-brainer. What about 5%?
Yeah, I think that's probably sustainable, yes, given what we spend in marketing. Yep.
What about 10%? Knowing that a 10% spend is going to bring them back for a full further 12 months.
You're still making margin in that, so yes, I think you can get to that sort of level. Yep.
Okay, so when we start working that, and I've done this over and over again, what we find is that somewhere between 8 and 12% is about right. But if you're selling rockets, you don't want to do that. If you're selling hamburgers, it doesn't work. You sort of need to be in a sweet spot in terms of the value of what you're selling. Let's call it 10% because I can count in tens.
It's always easy for everyone.
12, it gets beyond me very quickly. So if you're selling a $100 product and you're making a good margin on that, are you prepared to spend $10 to bring that client back and buy another $100 product and another $100 product? And then an interesting thing happens. Once that client really knows, likes, and trusts you, then you're in a position to proactively ask them for a referral. Now you're getting 2 for the price of 1. You're getting potentially 2 clients for that $10 investment because they already reckon you're brilliant anyway.
Yep.
If they're coming back,
another warm lead.
That's definitely something's positive there, so that's for sure.
Yeah. For ourselves, in the middle of last year, in the middle of all this crap that we're dealing with as business people and as human beings at the moment, I made the decision that I needed to very carefully let our clients know, and it might have been before you guys were clients, I can't remember, let our clients know that Greg and the Send Handwritten team, we actually give a crap. Because you're 2 blokes doing your best, I'm a bloke doing my best, and we're in the marketplace looking for ways to add value so that we can support the families that we cherish. So I simply sent a piece into the market. I think there were 120 or 140. There was a dad joke to it, but it was, "Hi, Andrew. I don't know about you, but this year is nuts." So there was a play on the concept of nuts. There's nuts all over the front of the envelope. I don't know whether
you got that, Anthony. I think.
I think I received that one.
Yeah, you did.
I got that one. And on the inside of it, there was a dad joke with a couple of cockatoos and nuts on their head. Does my beak look big in this? And so I put that into the market simply to say, I care. And I hope you're okay in the crap that's going on at the moment. That investment converted within about 6 weeks, converted 70 grand of new work. So 140 cards.
140 cards are not going to be anywhere near 10% cost, I would imagine. No.
That's right. So how much to reinvest? Let's say it was, 2 or 3%, at commercial rates. But of course, it's our business. So, we did it at cost for ourselves. But a 70K return on 140 card investment. And it wasn't a sales piece. It just
no, it didn't look like it. But I think
showing you're there. Yeah.
I think what I did do, Anthony,
in that, yeah.
If you could find that card, I think in it it says, and I dare you to have a look at my new website. That was it. That was the only pitch or the only commercial piece in it. I don't know if anybody did. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in So here's my thing. The why that is soul driven, that is behind Send Handwritten, is I have an assertion. And my assertion is that this planet will be a better place if we connect with and appreciate the human beings that we have the privilege to interact with while we're on this mortal coil. That's it.
I agree, because we can all go through life just stuck in our own head, and that's a dangerous place to be. It's in reality, we're only here for a certain amount of time, and if we can enjoy the company of others, I think that's a good place to be. So there's plenty in that to think about. And in terms of the way you're sort of going about it, it's so unique, so different. Never heard of anything like this from a marketing and customer retention perspective. I've heard the old, not old, but I've heard the things where you might send people presents, gifts in the mail, etc. But I think this is something a little bit more sustainable that you can work into lead generation as well as your client retention. Because, just showing that you care, and that's one of the words you've used a number of times through the podcast, is that's important, because we're all people. We're all on a path, doing our own thing, like you said, trying to look after our own world and create some value in it, especially if you're talking to business owners. And then how do we make more impact? That's what we care about as business owners. How do we add more value? And how do we ensure that we're working with the right customers to get them to where they want to get to as well? So there's plenty in that from a marketing and a thinking perspective. This is very unique. Hence why we brought you on the podcast, just to show a different spin on what you could think about doing. That's just a little bit outside the box. That may delight your customer and wow them. It's some key words that people use. How do you wow, delight customers? And this could be one avenue that people think about. That's just something they haven't entertained before.
And Andrew, when they do entertain it, and I'm guilty of this as well, when I do entertain the possibility of empathizing with, appreciating my clientele, creating something that is Disney-like, it's surprising and magical and different, and I want to deliver that in a way that is experiential, meaningful, because human beings don't remember stuff. You don't remember what you got for your 10th birthday, but you might remember the pool and the cake and the ice cream and the cousins and the whatever. So you might be able to recall that experience. The stuff is irrelevant. And if you are good to your word in that process, and we've systematized this, when I go through that process as a normal human being and not as the CEO of Send Handwritten, I get lazy. I go, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And how am I going to do it consistently? And what's it going to cost? And how do I source all that stuff? And when do I do it? It's all just too hard. So we've said to the marketplace, don't worry about it. We'll do it for you.
Make it easy.
Design the campaign, and it might be gifts, and it might be cards, and it might be audio, digi stuff. Like, it could be any ecosystem that simply says, we see you, we recognize you, we want to name you as somebody important in our world, and here's how we are choosing to express that at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not that spam email that you get every day of the week or 20 times a day. Some of them
get a different message and personal, and it's just different again because it's an actual physical letter.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and a card. Okay. In terms of the type of customers you work with, give us some examples. Like, who do you generally work with? What's some of the obviously you mentioned the accounting firms and big impacts, but what's the variance? Is it just anybody, or is it just a specific niche that you sort of target, or is it just any business owner looking to just impact from retention and lead generation?
And how did you narrow down your customer niche that this works with?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and as as the CEO, what I'm really clear about is that we're not a card company, we're not a marketing company. We're a marketing experience outfit that delivers remarkable and memorable marketing. And it's subtle, but there's a difference. So in actual fact, the wrong answer to your question is that we will work with anybody that is part of our tribe philosophically. And we've worked across multiple industries, and I've now lost track. I can't give you the figures on how many industries we have worked across. Where we are currently focusing the marketing for Send Handwritten is in the sectors at the moment that are going nuts. It's in the tech sector, real estate, tradies, not retail, tradies, and the finance sector. They would be the four. And the reason, and the other one that's an outlier, and when it comes across our desk, it's phenomenal. Actually, there's two. One is automotive, and the other is luxury travel. Now, the luxury travel one's been dormant. But when we get the handcuffs and our leg irons taken off us in the next few months, I think the luxury travel sector is going to go berserk.
Yeah, it's going to come back with a vengeance, like everything has when it's just woken up a little bit. Yes, you would agree.
There's a lot of pent-up demand.
Yes, definitely.
So they're the sectors in terms of marketing what we do. They're the ones that we're outbound marketing towards. But what comes across my desk this morning, a USA health insurance broker. She signed up.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's an interesting thing. I wouldn't normally go pursuing a health insurance broker. She works for a company, and this is where the US blows my mind. She works for a company where there are 4,000 people inside that company doing exactly what she does. So the question becomes, how do you stand out in a market where your colleagues, where there's 3,999 of them, and they're all doing exactly what you do when an inquiry comes across the corporate desk?
Well,
not only that, there are 1 million people in North America doing exactly what those 4,000 people do.
God, that's massive competition, isn't it? Yep.
So when I said, how about, or do you think it would help you if I could help you stand out and show up in a way that nobody else on the planet is showing up? And this was an audio digicard client. And, to explain that, there's no explanation. You've got to see them and feel them to get them. But I said, how about you show up via text, via LinkedIn, and embedded in emails with Morgan Freeman introducing you? She went, holy cow. She physically, I heard her do it. She physically got her credit card out and said, Greg, how much? I gave her a figure. She said, can I please give you my credit card number now? I want to start today. Okay. Because I had samples to show her, of course.
Yeah.
Now,
she just wanted that differentiator.
She wanted to show up. In actual fact, all 4,000 of those people are slowly being invited to participate. We're getting an 8% response rate to a drip feed set of emails that one of my colleagues, a joint venture partner, is sending. She's making cash. We will do well. The client will have a great impact, and the client's wealth will improve because we're collaborating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It could go into any space, but I think the key thing you mentioned there is how do you differentiate? Because we're all working in a very competitive landscape. There's 1,001 tech businesses like us. How do we differentiate? If you just put yourself in a bucket of a marketing agency, which you don't, I appreciate you don't. There's so many of those out there. So it's about how we differentiate and how do we do something a little bit unique. It's going to make us stand out from the crowd. And if we're just following the same line of the Facebook ads, the Google ads, etc., yes, we can compete. But yeah, is there something just a little bit differently you could be doing? And that's why I've always been obviously intrigued by Send Handwritten when we first met, because it is unique, and it's a different approach to what people may do on a daily basis when they think about marketing. And this is generally not one thing as a tool that people might consider. So it's very rare, very unique, and much competition in this space. Greg, or is this just something that's spawned out of your mind and you've never seen before?
I've certainly never seen it before. There is a company that I will give kudos to in America. They're called Send Out Cards. And I don't mind naming them because I rate what Cody Bateman is up to with Send Out Cards. It's a multi-level marketing company. And he started that for a bunch of personal reasons. And it's all built around personal or person-to-person one-off sending of something delightful in the mail. The differentiators are, and I've got about 10 different questions that differentiate us. Does that organization have, now fill in the dot points, have a strategist that works with you consistently during the course of a campaign to make sure that you get the result that you're looking for? Now, do you get a creative director allocated to you to iterate and improve and change and pivot as your campaign moves forward? Now, is the work handwritten by real human beings, hand addressed and then wax sealed with your logo embossed in the wax seal? No. Do you get anything other than a white envelope? No. Do you have a data team that supports that work when you use that other organization? No. Do you have appointment setters that support you and helped script non-sales sounding like appointment setting on your behalf? No. Can you convert your work to stuff that will turn up via text, socials, and email that will mimic that design? No. Do you have a LinkedIn concierge service that integrates that creative work into a series of LinkedIn messages? Or do you get nurtured into a LinkedIn pod to 10x the number of views that you get of the work that you post in LinkedIn? And do you have anybody that helps bring all of that ecosystem of work together, on your behalf and with you into what we now have started to call the memorable marketing blueprint, so that you show up in a memorable way, systematized across all of those channels? No, and I still rate what the only organization that is anywhere near us in the personalized card space. I rate what they do, but they are nothing like we're up to.
Okay. Just thinking of it holistically, not just the card itself. Let's put it that way.
It's a whole campaign around it.
Yes, and they've got people in play to help you through the process. One question I'd like to lean on is, if I'm going to go down this path and I want to try and work with someone like yourself, Greg, and there's not many out there, but in terms of Send Handwritten, what do I need to know before I enter in or design a campaign around my customers? What's some of the things that you might want to consider?
If it's a client retention campaign, let's build this a bit like a pyramid. Our current clients are the foundation of our business. What message do I want to send my current clientele? And it's not a B2C or a B2B message. And I encourage
person.
Yeah, so B2B is BS in our world. It's H to H or human to human or P to P, person to person, where the rubber hits the road. So I need my clients to think about the amount of emotional labor that they're prepared to do and what that message might be, and how much they're prepared to invest in that relationship. That's bottom of the pyramid. The next level up in the pyramid is, if it's a prospecting campaign, Anthony asked me the question, who is the avatar that you're seeking the attention of, Greg? And I said real estate and tradies and luxury travel, and what I explained. So I need to know from my client what that avatar is. Our creative team need to meet the human being that's sending the message, because human beings show up energetically. So we want to grab hold of that energy, match it to the avatar. If we can find the edge or the intrigue or the dad joke or the quip or the, I'd love to have a yak with you equivalent, we want to go looking for that. So I need a client that gets it, that this is a process, targeted, and then we're going to iterate. As a campaign evolves, it's going to iterate. We are now beyond trying to convince people that what we are up to works. We know it works. It's just a matter of collaborating for long enough and iterating enough to get the result that we know will eventually come.
Yeah, sometimes from the iteration piece, it's important, and it's in our work from a technology perspective, we're always iterating, and I think in a marketing sense, you need to be iterating, test engaging, evolving, and sort of reflecting what works, what hasn't, and yeah, you might not hit it first time, but second, third iteration might serve you well and be the campaign you run for the next 3 years. It just could be the way it sort of molds out for the organisation.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, as well, I explained the nuts campaign that we ran in the middle of last year. We ran another one concurrently with that. It was a disaster for ourselves.
It's good to know that, because not everything always works, does it? So that's reality. Yeah.
You've got to test enough to understand what doesn't,
Right.
to find the thing that eventually works.
One of the things that we did wrong was that we only had a small sample set. I think there were only 150 went out, and it just didn't land. And 3 years ago, it landed unbelievably. Something's changed. Something has changed. And I'm not exactly sure, still not exactly sure what it was. So we word up. We didn't continue for ourselves. We pivoted, and it was almost simultaneously we did the nuts campaign, and it blew our 2 payoff. Like, it was, holy cow! Didn't see that coming.
You know, you don't really know sometimes. That's the thing in this area of the marketing, the psychology behind it, because there is a bit in there, and it's you can't guarantee anything, but yeah, being prepared to iterate in anything in life, because we never have all the answers day one, and that's reality. So if we're prepared to just go in, give something a go, iterate, evolve, and just consistently stick with it, I think you can find an outcome that you're looking for, and you might find that this campaign may not work with direct customers, but it may work with channel partners, for example, from a different play. Yeah, just an example, just thinking out loud, how you could find that you need to iterate and pivot.
Exactly. I don't know who said it. Somebody way smarter than me. It was Jim Rohn or one of the big wigs in marketing said that half of your marketing is always working. But you never know which half.
You need to know which half, though. Yeah. You're getting leads, but where are they actually coming from? Yep.
Yeah. So in all reality, our worst customers are those that say, there's my photo for the back of the card, Greg, and there's my QR code that I want to go to my landing page, and here's my 50 words of copy and the image that I want. See you later. And then 3 months later, doesn't matter how much nurturing we do, they then say to us, this isn't working. And we say, well, did you turn up to those 6 appointments that we got you in the first 2 months? They say, what appointments? Go back and have a look at the emails. Have a look at your response. This is a real live example. Have a look at the emails. Oh, could you try and rebook those, please? Certainly. We did. All 6 of them. And we got the rounds of the kitchen because we didn't know that he changed his preferred days for having meetings, and we just happened to book each of these people on to the 2 days that he didn't want to meet. He dumped us like a hotcake. Now, I don't know if you've picked up our energy or my energy. That was devastating personally for me, because I don't know how we missed that communication. In actual fact, we didn't, but assume we take responsibility for that. The worst customer is one that isn't prepared to put time into this relationship, into the Send Handwritten. Like, it's just like, go and find.
I think that's with any business you work with. You have to invest the time to make it work.
It needs collaboration. It needs, they say it takes a community to build a child. It takes collaboration to build a successful marketing campaign. Mm-hmm. Work together with us.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Whack me over the head if it's not working. Great. I will be the first person on this planet to eat humble pie when you communicate with me. If you don't talk to me, my crystal ball's in for a service permanently. Talk to me.
Love it. That's a real take. If anyone's out there listening and looking at what's some of the things that you would advise them if they're willing to go down some different paths of what I call different types of marketing or different types of delighting customer, what's some advice you'd give them?
Be very clear that modern marketing is about building long-term relationships. It's about community. We know now on this planet that we've been hoodwinked by big business, one way or another. And I don't want to, get political or big business about this, but we know now that we've been hoodwinked in the last 2 years. The only way to build trust between human beings is to build a relationship of know, like, and trust. So that's my first piece of advice. Be very clear that you're not marketing. You're building relationships so that you can add mutual long-term value. Once that's clear, the rest of it is tools and techniques for relationship building, for building of business communities. So my advice is get clear about that first, and work with whoever it is that you want to work with to help you systematically be more human and to build that networking. So my head's just gone sideways a bit there. Forget about networking. Networking is a waste of damn time. Networking is, I don't want to dishonor anybody that's into networking. But when doesn't matter what flavor of networking you name, we all know the big names that are in the marketplace, but let's go for a business chamber. Nobody's going to get upset about me talking about a business chamber. You go to a business chamber meeting, and metaphorically, you've got a bunch of cards in your hand, and like a ninja warrior, you flick them around the room, and some of them stick in people's foreheads. And you look at them and you go, yes, I got one. And what you're hoping for is a sale, what they're hoping for is a sale. But the moment that you leave that RSL club or wherever it is that you've met, those business cards turn to dust. They evaporate.
In
That's
99% of cases, yes, correct. Yep.
Network building is a different beast. Network building is about getting the human beings around you before you're thirsty to help you build a well. So it's a bunch of human beings that are business people, they're entrepreneurs, they want to have an impact. Draw them to you. Invest time and a little bit of cash in building that network. And it doesn't matter what business you decide to go in down the track, you've got a network that you can share what it is that you're up to with. If it wasn't for my network building efforts in the last 2 years, we'd be broke. Guaranteed it. But I have invested tens of thousands and had hundreds of thousands of dollars invested or, spent with Send Handwritten in the last 2 years because people frickin' like me.
People like people. I get it. Yeah, it's all about people in the end. It's a relationship that you're building. It's not a business transaction. If you treat it like that.
Person in a business, not the business.
Correct.
Right.
We're not talking to Send Handwritten, we're talking to Greg.
Exactly. So go to spaces where there are network building opportunities, and I'm happy to share that with any of your listeners that are interested. I've got my preferred spaces that are working. Then think about the digital space. So where are your clients? Where do they show up? Is it Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn? Our preference is LinkedIn because we want the attention and our clients want the attention of business people. There's nearly 1 billion business people in LinkedIn, short of we're I don't know, 100 million short of something, but there's a lot of people in LinkedIn. And yes, they want to sell their stuff, their widgets, but I want to buy some of their widgets too. But I'll only buy widgets from people that I've already built a relationship with wherever possible. So if it's digital, our flavor of the month is LinkedIn. And I don't want to, dishonor any of the others. Then where else do human beings, business people show up? They show up at their desk. Well, what can you get on their desk that's going to get their attention? Something that lands either on their phone or in an email that is completely different to anything else that they're used to, or you land a damn yak or an elephant or something on their desk and they go, holy shit, what's this? So it's the ecosystem for building human relationships. That's what the Memorable Marketing Blueprint is all about. We've just systematized relationship building.
Mm-hmm. I like the way you frame it because it's, when you really think about it, it's any time you bring on a new customer, you've generally built a good relationship with them, unless you're selling a phone cover case in a retail setting and they just pop up and grab something. So it's very different. But when you're in business and service business and you're working with people, the relationships very important. They need to trust you, understand you, and the team before they get involved, and that's reality. So, really good way to frame that, because it's about relationships. So it just changes the context of, we need leads. How many relationships we're building this month? And I think it's a better way to think about it from a holistic approach, because if you're building relationships, the work will come, because it's, in reality, it's all about relationships, and that's how we've generated most of our business, off the back of good relationships and long-term things, and that's the way it's always worked.
Yeah, it moves from being transactional to personal.
Correct. Greg, been an absolute pleasure. In terms of anyone that wants to learn a bit more about Send Handwritten, I'm imagining it's just sendhandwritten.com.au. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, that's correct. And if anyone wants to reach out to Greg, he's highly approachable, so check him out on LinkedIn. Greg Smith is his name. So, Greg, thanks for joining us on a DevReady podcast. Really appreciate your time and sharing your journey thus far.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.